My name's Rob Aldridge. I was born in Ilkley in West Yorkshire. Some say I've got a southern accent now because I've lived in London twice. So picked it up from there really. Well, it was late 70s when I started there. I'd already had one job in Ilkley, which was a lab technician at the International Wool Secretariat in Ilkley. My mother mentioned there was a vacancy in the stores at High Royds. She was then working at Middleton Hospital. So she mentioned there was a vacancy, and I guess it was advertised in the local paper, in the Ilkley Gazette, and that's when I started there. And it was the late 70s when I was there. I think there was an interview with the head storekeeper, Mr. Rhodes, and probably his boss, a purchasing officer, a chap called Fred Towers. Yeah, I remember that, and obviously successful and got the job. Go up the drive past the social club and the laundry, and then turn left into car parking, and then the stores were just there. Just it was an unusual old sort of place, but the main thing I remember about the clock tower is that underneath it was the head porter's office. I spent a lot of time in there, sort of questioning what on earth is going on, because I'd never seen that sort of layout before. Old Victorian building, lots of people who obviously weren't like people outside, and probably worried about doing the job, and because it was quite a large operation there. That time they were storing everything for 5 or 6 hospitals.
All right.
Yeah. My role was just a storeman, stores person, and the job itself, I was starting in the morning. There was a massive milk delivery, which we had to deal with the receipt of that, and then putting it onto porters' trucks for them to distribute right around the village of High Royds. So there was milk, and there was also bread coming in for everywhere in the kitchens, and my job was the receipt and distribution of everything. So we used to get wagons with drivers, various components and stores, food for the kitchens, and then I used to have to get the shop order because there was a big shop there, and I used to have to get all the cigarettes and sweeties and all sorts of things, and take them to the shop and have them signed for, and that was that. So it was interesting because we had trusted patients working alongside us. There was, I can remember, there was one chap, Tommy. He was a paranoid schizophrenic. Well, my mother had always told me never turn your back on the patients or some of the staff, but the patients in particular, because they can be violent towards you. Tommy did just that. He threw a pair of metal wheels at me. Yeah. But he was just annoyed. We got over that, and that was all right. Yeah, Tommy, they used to let him out every Friday night to go back to his home in Shipley. He'd go and break every shop window in Shipley, and he'd be back on Monday morning. More or less everything came in. Can't remember anything made on site. No, it was all purchased. Anything that was needed in those units was usually distributed by porters who would sort of drive electric vehicles with a little truck on the back for transporting whatever it was being requisitioned for that ward. So we had, well, there was a massive laundry there, which obviously washed all the sheets, etc. for different wards. There was a garage for all the vehicles with a chief mechanic. There was painters, plumbers, electricians, a sewing room, hairdressers, shop I've already mentioned. Yeah. Joiners. It was just like a little village. Yeah, well, Mum was, she was actually part of the Roundtree family, going back in, and you know, ancestry, and part of the Roundtree of York, chocolate family. But anyway, she was born in Burley Morphdale, and obviously moved to Ilkley, where she lived for years and years. My mother has written an account of how and who she dealt with when she first started at High Royds, and it was 1940. Obviously, war was still going on, and she got an interview with the matron of High Royds, and I had to stand in the middle of WRCC in the office and stand at attention and have an interview with the matron. And she found out later she was successful, and that was the start of her training to be a state-enrolled nurse. But also she was a registered mental nurse. Her great love was dancing, and there was a big ballroom at High Royds with dances. So yeah, she enjoyed that side of it, but she did want to be a nurse and help people. So her training would have been probably 5 years or something, and she then moved to Middleton Hospital, where she became a theatre nurse, helping with operations, etc. But then going on to being an occupational therapist for the Wharfdale group of hospitals. She talked about arsonists that helped to build the fires and the fireplaces. She talked about being in the mortuary during her training. I mean, we had a little guy called Fred, who was made all the tea for both the wagon drivers and all the staff. I remember one day, one wagon driver was sitting down with us after he'd got his cup of tea, a mug of tea, and he'd said, he seems to be a nice fella. He was obviously a new driver, but he seems to be a nice fella. Why is he in here? And we told him, well, Fred poisoned his mother. So he didn't quite enjoy his mug of tea after that, you know. Michael, his parents were Indian, I think. Very, very quiet, very musical. Could play any instrument at all. He was a nice chap. Then he used to pack up all the cardboard that we'd then recycle. Massive Polish guy, I think it was, to help unload heavy sacks off wagons and things, you know. We had one of the patients, I can't remember her name, but she used to like to take all her clothes off and walk down the main road towards her residence, which happened quite a few occasions. Occasionally one of them might not come along, and you'd find out later why some of it happened, and you know, they were available or they were poorly or whatever. On the wards, there were things called knife boxes, which were very thick old wood with brass fittings on them. And what they used to do was eat all the meals with the cutlery, but they'd have to count it back into the knife box. And nobody could go anywhere unless everything was back in the box. We were very caring people, I would say. People nowadays tend to say, oh, people were treated badly in the past. I don't really believe so, but I never saw that side of it anyway. I walked into it without any preconceived ideas about it. Yeah, it was just going to be a wage. I didn't know what I was going into really, but I'm glad I spent my time there. It was good. I was only there for maybe 2 or 3 years, I think. Well, personally, I would consider Asylum life, or whatever it would be nowadays. Maybe it wouldn't be called that, it'd be something else. But certainly a safe place, which is keeping patients away from harming themselves, but also, you know, people they're in contact with. I often think to myself, I wonder where all these people are nowadays. Is it the reason we got so much trouble on the streets? Maybe. Some of them had been there for such a long time that they'd become institutionalised with that. I mean, Fred, for example, the guy I mentioned in the stores, he'd been there for 35 years. At that point, it probably is very difficult, would be, to go out of that environment. It was a bad idea. I didn't particularly go along with closing it. Well thought of by myself. Things like the cricket field there. I was thinking, well, if it closes, what happens to the cricket? You know? What about the social club? But my mother was very much involved with pantomimes and different dances and plays and stuff. So, yeah, she was very involved. My father was also sort of semi-involved with High Royds because he was a Wharfdale group driver. So he'd drive stores from High Royds down to Ilkley, Otley, etc. So when I was there, it was all members of the family were there, you know. I mean, things like shoes, for example. We used to get boxes of shoes in, and we had to put a hole punch in through the back of them to denote they were patient shoes, which is quite unusual, you know. Brand new pair of shoes putting holes in them. So that was quite unusual, and great big rounds of cheese that we would have to deal with coming in and out. So they were then cut up in the kitchen, I believe. I just think of it as a school, finishing school of life, really. Yeah, I enjoy my time there. I mean, it put me in good stead for the future. No, I can't think of anything else, but other than I enjoyed being there.